She was just 31 years old, a mother of two young daughters, when her life was viciously ended inside a Riverside apartment. Now that her daughters are grown, they're continuing the fight for answers about what happened to their mother more than 20 years ago. Here's Katie Jeffries with Unsolved.
The question of why is something that plagues so many who have lost a loved one to murder. It's been on Michelle James' mind for the last 2 decades. Why was her mother viciously murdered when Michelle was just 5 years old? And who did it? These photographs, spread across a table, are all Michelle James has to remember her mother, Valerie Ames. A woman that loved riding horses and camping, but most of all, loved her children.
I was only 5, so I don't remember a whole lot, but I do know that she was about her children. That was her life.
Her sister was 9, Michelle only 5, but Michelle remembers her final moments with her mother at a birthday party.
I was on her lap, you know. It was Barney. I was little, and that was my last time I've seen my mom.
After that, old newsreels tell the story. It was August 10th, 1996. Valerie's body was found inside the Courtyard Apartments on King Street in Riverside. But the apartment was not hers.
The gentleman that was renting the apartment was actually incarcerated the night before Miss Ames was recovered.
Detective Harmony Brooks with the Cold Case Unit at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office says their timeline rules out the man that leased the apartment. But Detective Brooks says after that man's arrest, the apartment was left unlocked. Inside, it was a gruesome crime scene. At 31 years old, Valerie Ames had been stabbed and beaten to death. The murder weapon would never be recovered. Interviews were done, evidence gathered, and leads followed. Detective Brooks has the original case file of around 500 pages. But in time, the case went cold. Stabbings, though, are a personal, close contact crime, which gives Detective Brooks hopes that maybe traces of Valerie's killer were left behind.
Right now what we're concentrating on is the evidence inside the crime scene and the fact that we're 22 years later with greater DNA technology.
With more than 30 pieces of evidence that they can retest for DNA, Detective Brooks is officially reopening this case, something Michelle and her family have always wanted. She says the years have done nothing to numb the pain of losing her mother so violently.
My mom could not be there when I had my babies. My grandmother had to live the rest of her life knowing she buried her daughter.
After more than 20 years, all they want is an answer about who took the life of a young mother in Riverside in 1996.
Help us get a name. Help us end this battle that we've been fighting for so long.
There is no statute of limitations for murder, so if you know anything about the death of Valerie Ames in 1996, please contact the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office or Crime Stoppers, and you can remain anonymous. Katie Jeffries, First Coast News, on your side.
And for a look at more local cold cases, you can find the link to the Project Cold Case database inside this story on firstcoastnews.com.